So good morning everybody. So today we will talk about how stress affects our ability to make decisions and how we can compensate for that so that we make smarter decisions in life. This is a video series about Poor Charlie's Almanac, The Psychology of Human Misjudgment, which is a very fantastic book. Investor Monish Pabrai, he says it's more valuable than a college degree to go through and studying this book. And today we're going through number 17, stress-induced tendency. It's a little bit fancy name for how stress affects our ability to make decisions, basically. And why is this important for us? Well, most likely the most stupid decisions we have done in our life, maybe you, definitely me, have been when we have been stressed in a stressful situation, because then we cannot think clearly and we're more likely to start doing what the crowd is doing rather than thinking rationally and acting rationally. So it can be very, very good to learn this tendency, because then we can start making smarter decisions, making fewer bad decisions. If we make fewer bad decisions, our quality of life will steadily go slightly upwards, and we have reduced a big downside in life by just eliminating a lot of stupid things. And especially if we are doing some kind of investing or if we have a company, this becomes very, very important, because suddenly our decisions become very important and they can have a big, big impact on our finances, the results of our investments or our company. So the further along we go the journey, in the financial journey, the more important this one becomes. So pay close attention so we can learn this one together. Charlie Munger, he writes in the book that we know a lot about stress in the form of depression, for example. We have studied that a lot, and society has come up with great ways of curing depression. And we can see, for example, people like Winston Churchill had periods of depression, but he was able to be to contribute enormously throughout his life, and wrote very big amounts of books, and he was one of the major factors why the World War II ended in the way as it did, and we're not everyone now speaking German. But when Charlie held this speech, he said that there had not been so much research about other types of stress and how that affects our life and decision making. But the one that he talks about, the one scientist that did research a lot about stress, was Pavlov. So for example, he made research that he could, when ringing a bell, he could make the dog's saliva start to produce just by hearing the sound of the bell, if they had associated that with eating. So it's very difficult to replicate his way of doing research, because it was quite cruel. But the lessons we have learned from it can be very, very useful. So we should not forget Pavlov and what he learned, because in the basement, or in the hall where he had all his dogs in cages, at some point there was a big flooding in the city, and the dogs almost died. It was only 2 centimeters of airspace where they could breathe in the cages. And what he found was that after, when he returned back, and after when that had happened, the dogs did not behave as usual. They did not like him anymore. They didn't like the caretakers anymore. So he saw that all that conditioning that he had been able to do was gone. It was wiped out because of this extremely stressful event. What does that mean for us? That means that one event of extreme stress can really change who we are as a person and how we act in normal situations, who we like being with and who we don't like being with, for example. So stress affects us in a big, big way. So after this incident, Pavlov, he spent the rest of his career focusing on researching stress on dogs, and making lots of experiments on dogs and inducing stress on them. And he found that all dogs could be broken down psychologically. Some were tougher than others, but all could be broken down. And he also found that to reverse the effect of the stress, you also needed to use a big stressful event to make them kind of normal again. Then you might ask, what does this have to do with me? Why are we talking about Pavlov's dogs? Well, because there might be situations where people could use stress to try to manipulate you to act in a way that is good for them. For example, cults, they use stress to make the members more part of the group, like more loyal to the group. So they specifically use stress to do this. So that is something we want to bear in mind and stay out of those situations. Another situation could be if there is a bear market or the stock market goes down heavily, for example. And then we might see that people panic and sell off all their stocks and make a terrible loss. We can see this has happened now. So many people are selling off their global index funds just because the dollar has weakened a little bit and because of what's happening in the US, and they're moving their money back to, for example, Europe or more locally like Sweden. And then you can wonder, is this really a rational thing to do just because the market is acting, has a like 10% downturn or something? Or is this induced by stress? Or are they just reacting to what's happening? Because historically, Europe has not had such great growth, for example. So is it really rational to bring money home and put it in Europe, for example? So if stress makes us act stupid and worsen the quality of our decisions, wouldn't it then make sense to decide not to make important life decisions while being under stress? That's actually something I did years ago, and that has remarkably changed the quality of my life. In my early 20s, I was usually, if I was in a stressful situation, it got even worse because I thought that I need to decide now. It's very important for me to decide now. And that kind of made the stress even worse. But now if I'm in a stressful situation or something is happening, then I decide, no, I will make this decision when I'm happy. I will put this off for now, and when I'm in a happy mood, then I will decide about this thing. And I cannot tell you how big of a difference that has in relationships, in finance, business, all aspects of life. You will make much higher quality decisions when you are in a happy state rather than when you're just reacting or when you're in a stressful mood, for example. This could also explain why happier people tend to be more successful, because when they are happy, they make better decisions and they have a better quality of life, and then they tend to have a better business and have better decisions with their finances, and it becomes a positive spiral. So if that is true, then it would make sense to invest in our own happiness, to do things that makes us happy, and to reduce things that makes us unhappy. And it could also explain why, for example, Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, why they, for example, on the Berkshire Hathaway meetings, you could see them eating lots of See's candy, for example, and drinking Coca-Cola, things like this, that makes them happy. Because they know that if they do things that make them happy, they tend to do smarter decisions in business and with their finances. So, and that's an interesting paradox, because most people, and including myself, have maybe thought that I need to live on a very strict, healthy diet and not do anything, only do things that are serious and not fun. But it actually the opposite should be true. That is, this principle explains why we see rich people going to concerts, going out to eat, doing things that they really enjoy, because they know that when they're in a positive mood, their life choices tend to be better. And if they can have, let's say they can eliminate 10% of their bad decisions, for example, then that over time would have a really big compound effect. Or if they could half them even, that would have a huge effect on their compounded growth in life. Compare this to most people in the FIRE movement who cut down on drinking coffee out or doing anything to spend money just to save a buck to invest in index funds. So they're cutting down on every little thing that actually brings happiness. And so while they're maybe saving a few dollars to invest in index funds, they actually miss out on many opportunities. Like, if they would be happier in their everyday life, maybe they would attract a new business partner, for example. They would have a better quality of life. They would take smarter decisions with their money. Maybe they would be more courageous. So instead of just putting in money in index funds, they would, I don't know, start their own business or attract customers to the business because of their happiness. So this really explains why we should invest in our own happiness. Because happiness matters. And rich people, they know this. It's a trick that they really know that how this works, and they invest in their own happiness, in their family's happiness, and in their friends' happiness. They are generous and they're generous to the right people and invest in their happiness and in their circle of influence, in their happiness also. So if we tend to make smarter decisions when we're happier, it could also make sense to stay out of debt, because there have been many studies done that shows that people tend to be less happy when they are in debt. So if, for example, someone takes on a lot of debt to use for investments or to fund their company, for example, and that affects their happiness in a bad way so that they get less happy, then they will have a lower return on investment on those investments. Maybe they're doing stupid decisions and lose all their money. For example, if there's a bear market and the stock market goes down heavily, a person who has used a lot of debt to finance that, they will be freaking out. But a person who is debt free will be kind of a little bit more relaxed. In fact, both Charlie Munger talked about that I think 2 or 3 times they saw their Berkshire Hathaway stock go down 50%, and it didn't bother him that very much because they were very big advocates of staying debt free. So do you remember why this is important? Because if you're happier, you will make smarter decisions. You will make less stupid decisions, and this will increase the quality of your life in both your happiness, in your finances, with your health, with your relationships. It will have a big impact on your life. You should also remember to stay out of situations where people use stress to try to make you make a decision fast, because then they're trying to manipulate you to do something. Another reason why this is really important is because if we make smarter decisions when we're happy and we make more stupid decisions when we're not happy, we should make an effort to have high quality friends, for example, and we should not be lonely. Because if a person is lonely, loneliness is an epidemic that's spreading in society, and it's very stress-inducing on people to be lonely. It's kind of the worst possible situation you can be in, because we are naturally made to belong in a group, and that meant survival historically. So when we are lonely, then our whole system will be in stress, because our system thinks that we are in a threatening situation, even though it might not be like that today. This also explains why people who are more lonely are more victims of relationship scams or scammers in general. Because when we're lonely and get stressed, then we're much more open to bad people. So scammers, relationship scammers, or scammers in general, they target lonely people because they know that they're stressed, and if they act really friendly towards them, they will have an advantage. So the chances are that your most stupid decisions in your life you will make during a period of loneliness. So make sure to stay with high quality friends to avoid this. So make sure to invest in your own happiness. Do things, be generous towards people around you. Be generous towards the right people. I'd say that is the best investment you can do. Invest in your own happiness like this, and others' happiness around you. Have high quality friends around you, because that your happiness and your good relationships will act like a shield. And stay away of situations where people are trying to induce stress on you to make a decision that is good for them and not for you. then take a step back and think about it. Maybe check it in with a friend and discuss the situation before making an important decision like this. And maybe you could try out the decision to never take an important decision while you're not happy, while you're in a stressful situation. Postpone that decision until a day when you're happy, and then make the decision. Because for me, that has made an enormous difference of the quality of my life. Great hanging out with you today, as always. So if you have any questions about this, you can just write below, and I will be happy to help you to implement this tendency.